Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Simon Williams. Thanks for joining us. The State Department of Health is coming up with new incentives to get people to roll up their sleeves for COVID-19 vaccinations. Today at a news conference, the AZDHS director gave an update on vaccination progress and announced a new partnership. The Diamondbacks will soon hold a vaccination event, offering free tickets for those who get vaccinated at Chase Field. As of this morning, 169 providers offered more than 40,000 doses of the vaccines for their pharmacies, health centers, and clinics. Even with a decrease in demand, about 20,000 doses are administered statewide each day. Dr. Kara Christ says other variants have some impact on the number of cases, but cases still remain steady.
There is always a chance that it could mutate, which is why we want to make sure we've got as many people vaccinated in our communities as soon as possible, because with every person that catches COVID as a new case, you're just furthering the ability of the virus to potentially mutate.
Like the flu shot, Dr. Chris says booster shots may be distributed in the following year as well. They are modifying the state sites and times as they try to identify the official closure in the future. In the latest from the Maricopa County election audit, Arizona Secretary of State Katie Hobbs says the voting machines handed over to cyber ninjas should not be reused in future elections. Hobbs wrote a letter to several departments of security expressing her concerns over the confidential information that might have exposed due to the audit. Instead, Hobbs says it would be best to use totally new voting machines for future elections. She says that there are no ways to ensure that those machines are safe to use for future elections. She clarified that she was only concerned about the specific machines that were handed over to the Senate audit, not the Dominion voting system. If you're enjoying the Suns playoff run on the radio, you are sure to hear Al McCoy yelling Shazam or Wham Bam Slam. The legendary broadcaster has been calling Suns games for almost half a century. Cronkite News reporter James Malamis chronicles McCoy's impact on the organization and the Valley.
Well, how you doing, everybody? Along with Tim Kempton, Al McCoy.
At the age of 87, Al McCoy has been broadcasting sports for the majority of his life. This season marks his 49th year calling Suns games, making him the longest tenured NBA announcer in history. His journey started back on a farm in Iowa, where at an early age he found the love for radio.
And we had no electricity and no running water until I was about, I think, 8 years old. But we had a battery radio, and I got very hooked on radio at an early age.
McCoy took that love for radio and made a career out of it. In 1958, the New York Giants moved their #1 farm team to Phoenix, and McCoy applied. After having tried once already to get a job in the Valley without success, this time was a different story.
Eventually, I was a part of that broadcast team for the old original Phoenix Giants that were on Cool Radio 960 AM. And that's when I came to Phoenix to stay.
After 2 years, the Phoenix Giants moved to Washington, but McCoy wanted to stay in Phoenix. A series of stops at different stations, including the Phoenix Roadrunners, eventually brought him to the Suns, just 4 years after their creation.
I thought, they're going to get a hockey guy to do the Suns? In the late 60s, early 70s, when he was doing Western Hockey League games with the Roadrunners, was when I first really became familiar with him.
Jeff Munn, who calls the Arizona State women's basketball games, is an Arizona native and got the chance to work with McCoy for 11 years. Munn considers McCoy to be the most important person in the history of the Suns franchise.
No matter whether the Suns were good or bad, people always wanted to hear Al.
Against Grant, out to Marley, here comes the trio. Shazam! What a shot! And he flies in for a wham, bam, slam!
McCoy's iconic Shazam call rooted from the Captain Marvel comic books, where Billy Batson would say Shazam and turn into Captain Marvel.
And when he said that, all lightning and thunder and all sort of excitement went off. So I said, well, hey, that might be something I could utilize for the three-point shot, thinking that there would only be a few every game.
Starts his drive, pumps up a three. Shazam! He ties it!
In the first year or two, the Suns hardly took any at all. Now there's more than you can imagine in the first 30 seconds.
Shazam and some other catchphrases like Heartbreak Hotel quickly became known by fans not only in Phoenix, but the whole country.
I became a quasi bodyguard for Al. We'd literally be in the middle of the broadcast and someone would come up and they'd have his book and their pen and and it's like, can you see we're on the air right now? Give us a minute.
In 2017, after 45 years of broadcasting the Suns, Al McCoy became the 15th member inducted into the Suns Ring of Honor and the first broadcaster.
To be there in that Ring of Honor at the arena with all of the great names that have played and coached for the Suns is certainly very, very special. It was a tremendous honor for me to receive.
Turning 88 in April, Al McCoy has already begun lightening his workload. He now only does the home games. When he decides to put the headset down for the final time, it's going to be a big change for Valley residents that grew up listening to him.
I'll probably cry. I mean, to be honest, even as a grown man, just when he goes away, just how long he's been there. And I can't really imagine listening to Phoenix Suns game without Al McCoy calling the shots.
It's like you go to a holiday dinner at the house and everybody from grandpa all the way down to the little ones know who the voice of the Phoenix Suns is.
After accomplishing so much, what keeps McCoy going is the love of the game.
Even though I've been doing it for a long time, I still get that thrill and excitement of broadcasting what I think is the greatest sports of them all, the NBA.
Whenever McCoy does decide to step away from the game, his legacy with the Suns and in the Valley will be felt forever. But until then,
if you will continue to accept me, and if God keeps smiling on me, I'm just going to keep going.
In Phoenix, James Malamus, Cronkite Sports.
And now a look back at some of our stories from our health team. From new legislation to teach mental health instruction to schools, to new wearable robotic technology that's being created right here in Arizona.
Meanwhile, mental health education in schools continues to be a priority in the state legislature. And now it looks like legislation will be passed to address curriculum to curb mental health problems in schools. Cronkite News reporter Mitchell Zimmerman explains how it will affect students in our state.
Senate Bill 1376 mandates that schools and districts across the state of Arizona include mental health instruction to existing health curriculum in partnership with the Arizona Department of Health Services. Teachers and professionals want to make sure it's making the grade.
We've sort of seen it explode at the school district, at the school levels.
Sarah Geller has been teaching in a classroom in the Valley for 12 years. She says she's never seen mental health challenges like this until the pandemic hit.
We see it more in the classroom. We're talking more with the parents and the school nurse and the school psychologist.
Mental health challenges have always been commonplace in schools, according to Ryan Stoll, a dissemination and implementation scientist at Arizona State University.
Mental health affects the things that are tied to money and funding in schools. It affects absenteeism. It increases tardiness and disciplinary actions, nurse visit time.
According to the 2019 state health assessment by the Arizona Department of Health Services, 36.4% of Arizona high school students reported feeling sad or hopeless every day for 2 weeks in a row. SB 1376 states that the State Board of Education requires all health education instruction to include mental health curriculum with the help from the Arizona Department of Health Services. Senator Sean Bowie of Tempe is the author of the legislation.
It's something I've seen in some of my schools that I've visited and seen it in grades as young as first and second grade. And I think it'd be great for our kids to, talk more about their feelings, talk more about their mental health.
Both Bowie and Stoll agree that the education could start in elementary school.
You can help kids and begin teaching them basic mental health skills and principles as early as first, second, third grade.
Geller wants to make sure the legislation is enacted with the students in mind.
You have to address and teach the whole student, and that means everything that they bring with them into your classroom. It would be nice for them to be able to leave it at the door, but that's not always something they could do.
The bill passed the state Senate, and it is currently waiting for a vote in the state House. Senator Bowie expects the bill should pass on a bipartisan vote. In the studio, Mitchell Zimmerman, Cronkite News.
Engineers all across the state of Arizona are making big leaps in the biomedical field of wearable robotics. Cronkite News reporter Nick Shesky has more on the field of human exoskeletons.
This device has the opportunity to change the trajectory of a kid's entire life. If they get this device now, they use resistance to improve their function, assistance to keep up with their peers. They're going to be happier and healthier.
Zachary Lerner has been at Northern Arizona University since 2017. His focus right now is on wearable assistive devices, particularly for children, at NAU's Biomechatronics lab.
I enjoy working with people. I really enjoy seeing the direct impact of a device that we're developing on a kid who comes in and, kind of sounds cliche, but, putting a smile on their face.
Lerner's focus is mainly on medical exoskeletons for people with a variety of disabilities that inhibit their ability to walk, cerebral palsy, stroke, or perhaps a spinal cord injury. He says right now that the biggest issue faced in the industry is the price of some of these machines, and Arizona State University's Thomas Sugar agrees.
The FDA-approved devices that do go to patients for spinal cord injury devices, those devices are more expensive. It can be in the six-figure range.
Lerner started his company Biomodem as a spin-off of his lab at NAU to try and fix this. He hopes the price of some of these life-changing devices could drop from the six-figure range to as low as $1,500.
There really aren't affordable exoskeleton devices on the market. They range from $30,000 to $100,000 plus, which is how much a house costs in some parts of the country. So you're either buying a house or a car, I guess, for an exoskeleton these days.
Another possibility for making exoskeletons more affordable for patients in the future is if insurance companies see the benefit of these devices and start picking up the costs.
If it delays surgery and mitigates the need for physical therapy several times per week, we think we can come up with a really cost-effective solution that's a no-brainer for insurance companies to pick up.
Maybe one day price will not be another barrier against a patient's ability to walk freely. In Phoenix, Nick Shesky, Cronkite News.
If you're interested in learning more about the advancements of wearable robotics, Wearicon 2021 will take place virtually from April 27th to the 29th, with discussions from leading researchers from all across the nation in the field of wearable robotics. When she was in 8th grade, Olivia Eisenhower collapsed during a volleyball game. Fast forward a few years later, she now has a new perspective on life and an unbreakable bond with a person she will never have the chance to meet. Cronkite News reporter Reed Harmon has more on the heartfelt story.
In journalism, we look for inspiring stories to tell of people who have experiences unlike any other. At the Walter Cronkite School here in Phoenix, there's Olivia Eisenhower, a student who loves storytelling as well. In this case, however, her story is the one to tell. I had the honor to speak with all of the families that are a part of this encouraging life of this young lady. Olivia Eisenhower wears her heart on her sleeve. The Kansas native is far from home, being at Arizona State, and for a moment at an 8th grade volleyball game, Eisenhower's heart had no life left.
I went and was playing club volleyball over the summer and walked off the court and went into sudden cardiac arrest.
She was gray. And we later found out that we had seconds.
Following that, I was in a medically induced coma for 2.5 days for them to kind of stabilize my condition and figure out what was going on. I survived that, thank you to an AED defibrillator that you see on the walls almost everywhere now.
And for a family feeling helpless as they see their daughter's lifeless body on the hardwood floor, you could say it was a sense of panic.
I was out of my ever-loving effing mind. Then when it became apparent and all these people were failing at CPR, I had just come from work. So I'm in a suit wearing heels. I throw my flipping heels in the air. Like, who does that? I was out of my ever-loving mind.
She had a second cardiac arrest just 2 years later, but was not as severe. Eisenhower was diagnosed with restrictive cardiomyopathy, a condition that affects the oxygen levels of the heart. It was then that the family learned she would need a heart transplant at just 14 years old.
There was never a doubt that this was ever going to work. We even, after they finally determined that a heart transplant was the only treatment, it was kind of a blow at first, but it's like, all right, how do we do this? What are the nuts and bolts? We did all the research on transplants, and probably too much research on transplants.
After that research, the family found out that transplants are a waiting game. For Eisenhower, that game was 2 years. Eisenhower's match came from 22-year-old Colorado native Connor Gilmore, a man his family says was loved throughout his community for his big heart and his passion for off-roading. Gilmore died in a car accident in December of 2018. His heart now beats for Olivia's life, a life she says she won't take for granted.
So Olivia makes me smile.
She's a special young lady that makes us smile.
They know that I'm putting the heart to good use. And they know that they're not putting it to waste, but that I'm carrying out a life that they would have wanted their son to have.
OrganDonor.gov says that one donor can save up to 8 lives. According to his family, Connor Gilmore was one of the healthier donors, with basically all of his organs applicable to be donated. So while his life was lost, the person he was is reflected in the amount of people he is now able to help. In the studio, Reed Harmon, Cronkite News.
And that's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks so much for joining us. Stay tuned for Break It Down. That's next. And for more top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
Every day I wake up, my first thought is, how can I serve this community?
The biggest hurdle was not taking PTSD personally.
Would you welcome, please, the amazing.
Everybody that watches this, they say that I'm the greatest that they've ever seen.
Cronkite News provides students at ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism with the opportunity to gain real-world experience in the newsroom. At Cronkite News, our students produce professional content for audiences by taking on all roles, whether they be reporting, anchoring, producing, or studio production. Each department gives students first-hand professional newsroom experience. For more information, visit cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
Stream the best of PBS on any device with the PBS Video app. All your favorite drama, history, science, news, and documentaries, all in one place. Watch your PBS station live or catch up on the shows you missed. Discover new favorites from PBS and locally produced shows from your station.
Sign in and start streaming today.